Colonel Tom Parker wasn't really a colonel, wasn't named Tom Parker, and wasn't even American. He was an illegal immigrant from the Netherlands named Andreas Cornelis van Kwijake. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, a global phenomenon, never performed a concert outside of North America, not once. Parker took an unprecedented 50% cut of almost everything Elvis earned, sometimes even more. Elvis desperately wanted to be seen as a serious actor like James Dean or Marlon Brando, but was largely trapped making cheesy formulaic musicals year after year. During a heated moment in Las Vegas, Elvis actually fired Colonel Parker on the spot, though it didn't stick. Number 7. The battle over songs, publishing via passion. Okay, picture this. Elvis Presley, the guy with the voice that could make angels weep and sinners shake, is in the recording studio. He's feeling a song, ready to pour his heart into it. But wait. Before the tape even rolls, there's often a behind-the-scenes hurdle, orchestrated by Colonel Parker. It wasn't always about finding the best song for Elvis, the one that perfectly matched his evolving style or artistic desires. Often it was about finding a song that Parker could secure publishing rights for, specifically through the company Hill and Range. See, Parker had a cozy deal. Hill and Range handled the publishing for many songs Elvis recorded. This meant that every time an Elvis song got played on the radio, sold on a record, or used in a movie, money flowed back to the publisher. And guess who often got a piece of that publishing action, or whose relationship ensured his artist recorded those songs? The Colonel. This created a massive conflict of interest. Elvis might hear a fantastic song from an outside writer, something fresh and exciting. But if Parker couldn't get a slice of the publishing pie, that song might mysteriously disappear from consideration. Think about the pressure. Elvis is presented with a stack of songs. Some might be amazing, true works of art. Others might be less than stellar formulaic. Maybe even kind of silly. But if the silly song came with the right publishing deal attached, guess which one often got Parker's enthusiastic push? This led to frustration. Elvis, especially later in his career, had strong musical instincts. He loved gospel, blues, country, and rock and roll. He wanted to explore, to grow as an artist. But he often found himself recording tunes that felt lightweight or repetitive, seemingly chosen more for their business potential than their artistic merit. There are stories from inside the studio, accounts from musicians and producers, about Elvis expressing dissatisfaction. He might push back, try to champion a different song or suggest changes. Sometimes he won. Other times the pressure to fulfill contractual obligations or appease the Colonel and the publishing company meant recording songs he wasn't truly passionate about. Imagine having that voice and sometimes being steered towards mediocrity for business reasons. He reportedly complained about the material, feeling it didn't challenge him or reflect where he was musically. Yet, the machine kept rolling. Parker's focus was often on volume and maximizing income streams, and controlling the publishing was a key part of that strategy. This disagreement wasn't always a shouting match, but a persistent underlying tension. Elvis's artistic soul versus the Colonel's business blueprint. It arguably led to some questionable additions to Elvis's otherwise legendary discography. Songs chosen not by the king, but by the dealmaker behind the throne. Number 6. Hollywood heartbreak. Serious actor vs. musical fluff. Elvis didn't just want to be a movie star. He wanted to be a real actor. Think Marlon Brando, James Dean, actors known for their dramatic depth and powerful performances. And in the beginning, it looked like he might just get his wish. Early films like Love Me Tender, Jailhouse Rock, and especially King Creole, 1958, showed genuine promise. Critics noted his charisma and screen presence. King Creole, directed by Michael Curtiz, who directed Casablanca, is often cited as Elvis's best film, a role where he actually got to sink his teeth into a character with some grit. Elvis himself loved making it, and hoped it was the start of a serious acting career. Then came the Army stint. When Elvis returned, Colonel Parker had a different vision for his Hollywood career, a vision driven purely by dollar signs and efficiency. Parker figured out a formula: low budgets, quick shooting schedules, often just a few weeks. Exotic but cheap locations or studio backlots, a handful of new songs plugged into the flimsy plot, and a guaranteed profit, rinse and repeat. Forget dramatic depth, forget challenging roles, forget critical acclaim. Parker wanted maximum return on investment with minimum risk. This led to the infamous era of the Elvis travelogue musicals throughout the 1960s. Titles like Girl, Happy, Harem Scarum, Paradise, Hawaiian Style, Easy Come, Easy Go, Clambake, Kissin' Cousins, the list goes on. The scripts were often interchangeable, the songs forgettable, partly due to the publishing issues mentioned earlier, and the roles demanded little more from Elvis than to look good, sing a few tunes, and maybe win a fight or a race. Elvis hated it. He openly expressed his embarrassment and frustration with the declining quality of his films. He reportedly pleaded with Parker for better scripts, for roles with substance. He saw his initial acting ambitions sliving away, replaced by a relentless conveyor belt of cheap, cheerful, and artistically empty movies. He'd receive scripts and reportedly toss them across the room in disgust. He knew they were bad. He felt trapped. Parker's argument was always the same. They made money, lots of money. And Parker controlled the deals. He negotiated contracts that paid Elvis a fortune per picture, plus a percentage of the profits. To Parker, that was the only measure of success. Why risk a serious drama that might flop when you had a guaranteed moneymaker, even if it was cinematic junk food? Elvis saw actors like Brando, Paul Newman, and Steve McQueen getting the kinds of roles he craved. He knew he had the potential, but Parker's iron grip on his career path kept him stuck in the Technicolor musical rut. This wasn't just a minor disagreement. It was a source of deep, ongoing unhappiness for Elvis. He felt like a joke in Hollywood, even while his movies pulled in crowds. He wanted respect as an actor, but the Colonel plotitized profit over prestige, quantity over quality. The dream of being the next James Dean died somewhere between Blue Hawaii and Spin Out, a casualty of the Colonel's relentless, financially driven formula. It was a major point of contention, highlighting the fundamental difference in their priorities. Elvis's artistic aspirations versus Parker's business imperatives. Number 5. The 68 Comeback Clash Rock and Roll, vs. Christmas Carols. By 1968, Elvis was kind of lost. The movie grind had taken its toll. He hadn't performed live in front of an audience since 1961. Rock and roll had changed dramatically with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the psychedelic revolution. Elvis seemed like a relic from another era, stuck churning out bland movie soundtracks. Then came the opportunity for a television special, sponsored by Singer Sewing Machines. This could be his chance to reconnect with his audience, to show the world he still had it. Colonel Parker, ever the businessman, saw the special primarily as a commercial vehicle. His brilliant idea, a cozy family-friendly Christmas special. He envisioned Elvis strolling through snowy sets, singing traditional carols, and maybe a few recent safe hits. Think sweaters, sleigh bells, and mainstream appeal. Easy, safe, profitable. He even made deals for merchandise tie-ins based on this concept. But Elvis and a young, ambitious television director named Steve Binder had other ideas. V-E-R-Y, different ideas. Binder saw the potential for something electrifying. He wanted to remind people why Elvis was the king in the first place. He wanted to strip away the Hollywood gloss and showcase the raw, rebellious energy that had started it all. Elvis, hungry for a return to his roots and eager to prove himself again, was completely on board. He wanted to play real rock and roll, blues and gospel. He wanted to perform live, unrehearsed, in front of an intimate audience. The clash was immediate and in Parker, H-A-T-E-B, Binder's ideas. A raw, edgy Elvis in black leather, performing sweaty, bluesy numbers. An informal, in-the-round jam session. It was the opposite of the safe-controlled image Parker carefully cultivated. It felt dangerous, unpredictable. Parker fought Binder tooth and nail. He tried to interfere, demanding more Christmas songs, insisting on the original format. He saw Binder as a threat to his control over Elvis's image and career direction. According to Binder and others involved, the tension was thick. Parker would hover, make demands, and try to undermine the new direction. But Binder had a crucial ally, Elvis himself. Re-energized and inspired, Elvis sided with Binder. He loved the idea of the informal jam sessions with his original bandmates, Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana. He felt alive again, playing the music he loved. He put his foot down. The black leather outfit, the stand-up performances brimming with charisma and energy, the intimate jam session, these were non-negotiable. Parker, faced with a determined Elvis and a director backed by the network and sponsor who were impressed with the developing show, eventually had to back down, though not without grumbling. He reportedly couldn't even watch the taping of the intimate, in-the-round segments, because they represented everything he opposed. He still managed to shoehorn in one sentimental closing number, "I'll Be Home for Christmas," later replaced by "If I Can Dream" in the broadcast edit Binder fought for. As a concession, the result. The '68 comeback special, officially titled Singer Presents Elvis, was a monumental triumph. It revitalized Elvis's career overnight. Critics raved. Audiences were blown away. The image of Elvis in black leather snarling through rock and roll classics became instantly iconic. It was raw, powerful, and exactly what Elvis needed. And it happened despite Colonel Parker's initial vision, not because of it. This disagreement wasn't just about one TV show. It was a battle for Elvis's artistic soul, a moment where Elvis, with Binder's help, briefly wrestled back creative control and reminded the world, and maybe himself, who he truly was. Number 4. The Gilded Cage, Trapped in Vegas. After the stunning success of the '68 comeback special, Elvis was hot again. He was ready to conquer the world, maybe tour, make meaningful music. Colonel Parker, however, saw a different, more controllable and incredibly lucrative path: Las Vegas. In 1969, Parker booked Elvis into the brand new International Hotel, later the Las Vegas Hilton, for a 4-week engagement. The opening night was a sensation, a triumphant return to live performing. The deal was huge, setting records for Vegas performers. Initially, Elvis seemed to enjoy it. The energy of the live audience, the luxury accommodations, the adulation, it was a rush. And the money was phenomenal. Parker loved it even more. Why? Vegas was the perfect setup for him. No messy touring logistics across countries or continents. Elvis was in one place, easy to manage, easy to monitor. The casino environment likely appealed to Parker's own well-documented gambling habits. He negotiated increasingly lucrative contracts for Elvis to perform 2 shows a night, month after month, year after year. But what started as a triumph slowly turned into a trap. The Vegas residency became relentless. The schedule was brutal. 2 demanding shows per night, one often around midnight. This grueling routine, repeated for weeks on end, season after season, began to wear Elvis down physically and mentally. Vegas, initially exciting, became monotonous. The set lists sometimes grew stale. Elvis felt increasingly isolated, living a nocturnal existence in his penthouse suite, surrounded by his entourage but disconnected from the outside world. He started expressing his boredom and frustration. He reportedly complained about feeling like he was in a cage. He longed to tour internationally, to connect with fans across the globe, but Parker kept him tethered to Vegas. Why tour the world when the world, or at least high-rolling tourists, could come to Elvis, and Parker could keep a close eye on everything? The Vegas shows, while still drawing crowds, sometimes saw Elvis going through the motions, or worse, exhibiting erratic behavior on stage, fueled by prescription drug use, which was escalating under the pressure and monotony. Parker seemed largely oblivious or indifferent to Elvis's declining enthusiasm and well-being, as long as the contracts were signed and the venue was sold out. To the Colonel, Vegas was the golden goose, predictable, manageable, and incredibly profitable. For Elvis, it became a symbol of his confinement. He was the highest-paid entertainer in Vegas, living like a king. But he felt trapped in a gilded cage, performing the same shows in the same city while his desire to explore new horizons went unfulfilled. This disagreement wasn't a single argument, but a slow, burning resentment over the direction of his career. Elvis wanted the world. Parker gave him Vegas, a lucrative prison disguised as a palace. The Vegas grind became a major factor in the final tragic years of his life, a direct result of Parker's preference for controlled profit over his star's artistic satisfaction and potentially his health. Number 3. The world denied no passport, no global tours. Elvis Presley was arguably the biggest star on the planet. His music transcended borders, languages, and cultures. Fans in Europe, Asia, Australia, South America, everywhere were desperate to see him perform live. Promoters offered fortunes for Elvis to tour internationally. It would have been a global event, cementing his status as a true worldwide icon. Yet, it never happened. Not a single concert outside North America, USA, and a few shows in Canada in 1957. Why? The reason points directly to Colonel Tom Parker and his closely guarded secret. The official excuses Parker gave over the years varied. Security concerns were too complex. The venues weren't suitable. The costs were prohibitive. He claimed Elvis didn't like flying over oceans, despite flying privately within the U.S. None of these reasons held much water. Other huge acts toured globally. Security could be arranged. Suitable venues existed. The potential profits were astronomical, easily covering any costs. Elvis himself expressed a desire to travel and perform for his international fans. He knew he had a massive following overseas and reportedly felt bad about never going there. The real reason, hidden for decades, was Colonel Parker himself. As mentioned earlier, Colonel Tom Parker was a manufactured identity. He was born Andreas Cornelis van Quijeke in Breda, Netherlands. He had entered the United States illegally in the 1920s and never became a naturalized citizen. He served in the U.S. Army for a time, but reportedly deserted. He was essentially a man without a country, living under an assumed name with a fabricated past, including the honorary colonel title given by a Louisiana governor. If Colonel Parker, as Elvis's manager and essential chaperone, were to leave the United States for an international tour, he faced a huge risk. He might not be allowed back in. Applying for a U.S. passport would have exposed his illegal status, his real identity, and his past. The entire, carefully constructed facade could crumble. His control over Elvis, his livelihood, everything could be jeopardized. So, he simply refused, point blank. Any suggestion of touring outside North America was shot down. This decision had enormous consequences for Elvis's career and legacy. It denied him the experience of connecting with millions of his fans worldwide. It limited his artistic horizons. Imagine the frenzy if Elvis had played London, Paris, Tokyo, or Sydney. Instead, his global reach was limited to records, movies, and later, satellite broadcasts. The famous Aloha from Hawaii concert in 1973, broadcast live via satellite around the world, was Parker's clever workaround. If Elvis couldn't go to the world, Parker would bring the world, via television, to Elvis, all while keeping himself safely on U.S. soil. While a technological marvel and a huge success, it wasn't the same as a live, in-person tour. Elvis reportedly became increasingly frustrated by this restriction, especially as other major artists routinely toured the globe. It was a constant source of underlying tension. Parker's personal secret, his fear of exposure, directly prevented the king of rock and roll from truly conquering the world stage in person. It remains one of the most significant what-ifs in music history, a direct consequence of a major, unresolvable disagreement rooted in the manager's hidden past. Parker put his own precarious situation ahead of his client's global potential. Number 2. The breaking point, the Vegas firing, and ignoring the decline. The relationship between Elvis and the Colonel wasn't just business. It was deeply personal, complex, and often fraught with tension. While they maintained a facade of mutual respect for years, there were moments when the frustration boiled over, leading to dramatic confrontations. One of the most famous incidents reportedly happened, peg-aged in Las Vegas, likely around 1973 or 1974, during one of the grueling Hilton engagements. Accounts vary on the exact trigger, but the core story remains consistent. Elvis, exhausted, likely under the influence of prescription medication, and deeply unhappy with the Vegas grind, the song choices, or Parker's perceived lack of care, finally snapped. In a furious outburst, fueled by years of simmering resentment over creative control, finances, and feeling trapped, Elvis unleashed a torrent of anger at Colonel Parker. He reportedly accused Parker of mishandling his career, of not caring about him, and of being interested only in money. The argument escalated, and in the heat of the moment, Elvis yelled the words Parker probably never expected to hear: "You're fired." Imagine the scene. The king of rock and roll, the biggest star in the world, telling the man who had orchestrated his entire career, the man who took 50% of everything, that he was finished. Parker, usually unflappable, was reportedly stunned, possibly even hurt. Members of Elvis's entourage, the Memphis Mafia, witnessed the confrontation. For a moment, it seemed like the decades-long partnership was truly over. However, the firing didn't last. Parker, a master manipulator and negotiator, didn't just walk away. He quickly drew up an itemized bill for all the money Elvis supposedly owed him, for past services, for expenses incurred, for breaking the contract. The amount was astronomical, running into millions of dollars. Parker presented this to Elvis, or possibly through Elvis's father, Vernon, who handled finances. Faced with the staggering sum and the sheer complexity of untangling his affairs from Parker's control, Elvis eventually relented. The firing was rescinded. Parker remained his manager. It was a dramatic display of how enmeshed their lives and finances had become, and how difficult it was for Elvis to break free even when he desperately wanted to. This explosive incident also ties into another major area of disagreement: Elvis's health. As Elvis's physical condition deteriorated in the 1970s, his weight gain, his reliance on a dangerous cocktail of prescription drugs, his lethargy, his sometimes erratic stage performances, many people around him grew deeply concerned. They saw the king declining before their eyes. Yet, Colonel Parker seemed to push forward relentlessly, booking more shows, demanding Elvis fulfill his obligations. There are numerous accounts from insiders suggesting Parker dismissed concerns about Elvis's health. His primary focus remained on keeping the money machine running. As long as Elvis could stand up and perform, the show must go on. Parker reportedly waved off warnings from doctors and friends, sometimes even facilitating access to physicians who would prescribe the medications Elvis needed to keep going. While Parker wasn't solely responsible for Elvis's tragic path, his alleged resistance to slowing down the schedule, to prioritizing Elvis's well-being over performance dates and contracts, became a significant point of contention, at least for others in Elvis's circle, and arguably for Elvis himself in his more lucid moments. The Vegas firing was the explosive peak of this frustration, a moment where Elvis tried to break free from the man he increasingly saw as ignoring his needs both artistically and personally. The failure of that firing attempt, and the continued pressure to perform despite his declining health, paints a grim picture of the final years of their complex relationship. Number 1. The 50-50 split, the deal that defined everything. This is the big one. The foundational disagreement that arguably colored every other aspect of their relationship, the money. When Colonel Parker first took over managing Elvis Presley in 1955-56, he initially took a 25% commission. This was already high for the time. Most managers took 10 to 15%. But Parker delivered results, securing the landmark deal with RCA Victor and guiding Elvis through his initial meteoric rise. Elvis, young and inexperienced in business, and his family were likely just grateful for the success. But after Elvis returned from the Army in 1960, Parker renegotiated. He upped his commission to an unprecedented, almost unheard of, 50% of nearly everything Elvis earned. Movies, record sales, merchandise, live appearances, television specials, Parker took half right off the top, gross income before expenses. Elvis Presley, the artist generating the income, the talent drawing the crowds, was essentially an equal partner, financially speaking, with his manager. This arrangement was virtually unique in the entertainment industry then and now. Why did Elvis agree to this? Several factors were likely at play. Loyalty played a part. Parker had guided him to stardom. Perhaps fear of disrupting a successful formula. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, who managed the family finances, trusted Parker implicitly, often siding with the Colonel on business matters. Parker was also a master salesman and negotiator, likely convincing Elvis and Vernon that he was worth every penny, that only he could navigate the complex deals that kept the money rolling in. He positioned himself not just as a manager, but as an indispensable partner. However, this 50-50 split became a source of enormous underlying friction and potential resentment, especially as Elvis matured and perhaps became more aware of industry standards. Think about it. For every dollar Elvis earned through his talent, his sweat, his grueling performances, Parker took 50 cents, simply for managing his affairs. This financial structure gave Parker immense power and arguably disincentivized him from certain career moves. Why risk a potentially less profitable serious movie or a complex world tour when the current formula, movies, Vegas, generated massive, easily split income? Furthermore, Parker's own significant gambling habits were widely known. He was a fixture in the Vegas casinos. Taking 50% of one of the world's highest-paid entertainers provided him with a colossal income stream, potentially fueling his personal spending. While Parker undoubtedly worked hard, promoting Elvis and securing deals, the sheer scale of his take was extraordinary. Did Elvis fully grasp how unusual this arrangement was? Accounts differ. Some suggest he was aware, but felt locked in or simply didn't want the confrontation. Others believe he may not have understood the extent to which it deviated from the norm. Regardless, the 50-50 split defined the power dynamic. Parker wasn't just an employee. He was a controlling partner. This financial arrangement likely influenced his decisions regarding movie quality, prioritizing profit, touring, avoiding risks to his status, song selection, favoring publishing deals he benefited from, and potentially even his attitude towards Elvis's health, keeping the 50% flowing. While never publicly confirmed as a source of major blow-ups, unlike the Vegas firing, the sheer lopsided nature of the financial deal represents the most fundamental disagreement of all: the division of the spoils from the empire built on Elvis's talent. It was the bedrock upon which their entire complex, successful, and ultimately troubled relationship was built. Parker got half, and that fact alone speaks volumes about the unique and often contentious partnership between the king and the colonel.